Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I have for you a bit of a different video. It's not a tutorial, but it is all about makeup, and it's all about makeup brushes and like makeup tools. A lot of you have requested, you've private messaged me or you've kind of commented down below in a lot of videos that you would like to see how I use my brushes, what my favorite brushes are for makeup. So today I thought I would go through the main brushes in my collection that I really like, what I use them for, and how you can use the ones you have, and maybe which ones you need to go and buy if you want to create similar looks to mine. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. But before that, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I upload twice a week and I would love to have you back on the channel. Okay, so in this video, what I thought I would do is go through like the brushes that I most use in my collection. I do have a few other ones, but I rarely use them, so I didn't think there was much point in going through them. So this is kind of a capsule brush collection. I think these are the most kind of necessary brushes. You might not need all of them, depending on, you know, what kind of things you want to do with your makeup, but I'm going to go through all of them, let you know what I use them for, and this way you can see whether you need to go out and buy some. I'm also going to recommend the brands which I have, which I really like, but obviously there are, you know, a lot of options out there in the market, so by all means go out and test them for yourselves and see what you love. Okay, so we're going to start everything off with foundation brushes, and I'm going to try and go in the order that I would apply the products. And foundation brushes, I have these three brushes. The first one is a buffer brush. This one is by Zoeva, and this one leaves a very even coverage, spreads the foundation fairly lightly. It leaves sort of a medium finish, and it's very quick to use, blends in really well, but if you want a very full coverage finish, this one's probably not the best one for you. It has a very densely packed bristles, and you can use it to either buff the foundation in circular motions or stipple it in. This one's by Gosh, and it is a classic flat foundation brush. This one I find leaves a little bit more of a streaky finish, so when I use this I find that I then have to go in with something like a beauty blender just to finish blending everything out. It does leave a more full coverage finish than the buffer brush, and it's a very nice brush because it's small, so it's nice to get into the kind of nooks and crannies of your face. You can pat it in, but usually it's more kind of a painting motion that you would do with this one. Finally, I have this smaller brush. This one's actually a concealer brush. It's from Shu Uemura. It's a synthetic brush, which is great to apply cream products. I find that with cream or liquid products, synthetic brushes work much better. This one is really small. You can use it for foundation if you want to apply it to like little details on your face, but otherwise it's great for concealer. You can pack it on, but it works pretty similarly to the flat foundation brush. You would usually kind of just sort of paint it on, and then you would go in with your fingers or with a sponge to just finish blending out. Moving now on to contouring. My favorite one for cream contour is this one from Charlotte Tilbury. It's the Hollywood Complexion brush. This one again is very similar to the Zoeva brush, very densely packed bristles, but it is smaller than the Zoeva brush. So I find it's really good to blend in the contour just around this area. It gets in really well into like underneath your cheekbone. If it's a very big brush, you're going to end up kind of spreading the contour everywhere, and then that's kind of going to lose the effect. So this one's quite good because it kind of goes in really nicely into that little corner. And then on the other side you have an angled brush, which is the same, pretty densely packed, but just in an angular shape. So it's really nice to kind of contour your nose because it can get in really well, as you can see here, into the angle, and then just you can drag it down. I find that with my nose contour and my contour on my cheeks, I like to go in with a beauty blender after using this brush just to get a more kind of subtle finish, because this, like I said, leaves more coverage, and then the beauty blender just kind of really sort of blends it in and leaves it really nice and smooth. But as a first point, this one's really good. Or if you want kind of your contour to be more prominent, then you can definitely go ahead and just blend with this using circular motions like you would with the Zoeva brush. Moving now on to cheek brushes, I have these two. This one is by Dior, and it's a classic blush brush with relatively densely packed bristles. It has a dome shape. It's very soft. I absolutely love this brush by Dior, and it's great to blend in your blush. This one is by Charlotte Tilbury. It's again in a sort of pointy dome shape. This one is fantastic for contour. This one has a lot looser bristles, so it just leaves a lighter finish on your makeup. I love this one for bronzer and for contour just because it blends it really, really well. And because it's quite pointed, it goes in really well into this kind of crook here of underneath your cheekbone, and you can just kind of blend it in circular motions. You would have seen this in my makeup tutorials. I'll link a few on the screen now so you guys can go and have a watch. But yeah, this one is my go-to brush. It's really, really soft, and I've had it for about 4 years and it's still going strong. It doesn't shed at all, and I just find it one of my most used brushes in my kit. Moving now on to highlighter, I have a fan brush. These ones have become pretty hard to come across. This one is from Smashbox and it's a classic fan brush, but it's relatively small. I have quite small features, so I prefer smaller ones. Again, this one is a synthetic brush, but you can definitely go for a natural one if you like as well, because usually you'll be applying powder products. The general rule when applying powder products is that you can go for natural bristles, but you can also use synthetic if you like, but I would go for something that's very soft on your skin. This one, the bristles are quite far apart, so it leaves a very, very light coverage, which I really like for applying highlighter because I want something really subtle. I find this one is great to just kind of fan it on and leave a very, very light dusting of highlighter like I have on right now, but nothing too intense. If you like more intense highlighter, you might like something more like this contour brush that I showed you earlier. This one, I like it, like I said, because it's quite small, but you can go for bigger ones if you want to use it to kind of maybe apply powder on your face. I prefer this one because I only use it for highlight. Moving now on to eyes, I'm going to talk about my most used brushes, and these are the blending brushes. Firstly, we have this one by Sigma, which has very lightly packed bristles. They're quite long as well, so it leaves a nice kind of very subtle wash of color. It isn't too big, so you can still kind of get a little bit of detail with it, but I would say this one is more for like a very light wash of color or a blending on the crease that you want it to look very seamless. This one is by Number 7 from Boots, and this one is a lot smaller, very tapered at the end, a lot more densely packed than this one, but still sort of soft so that you can blend in nicely, and quite small as well, so you can still do quite a lot of detail. I find I use this brush the most. I love this one for everything. I like very kind of blended looks on the eyes, and I find for a smokier, this one is amazing. I use this one to apply a wash of color across my lid, but I also use it to just blend in my crease, especially when I want something that's going to kind of go all the way up to here. I also use it to blend out like my highlight on the top of my kind of underneath my brow, and also to blend in the color I've applied just underneath my lower lash line. So I use this one a lot. It leaves a very subtle finish. Because it's quite small, like I said, you can still get into details, but it does blend in beautifully, and yeah, the bristles are so soft, doesn't shed at all, so I absolutely love this one. Also for eyes, you definitely need a flat brush. This one is from the Naked palette from Urban Decay, but you can get these, you know, from lots of different brands. I would say Real Techniques is a real good one. This one is amazing because it's flat, but it's still got a little bit of a dome shape, so you can still blend in a little bit with this one. But if you want a really kind of detail-oriented brush, I would go for a smaller one than this one, which has a little bit more of a tapered end and is very, very flat. This one is great to apply sort of eyeshadow that you densely want to pack onto your lid. It's great also to apply pigments, which like glitter pigments. I would go for something a bit smaller than this if you're applying glitter pigments, but I don't tend to apply those all that much, so I get away with just doing it with my finger. I do have a smaller one, but I don't use it that often. But otherwise you can definitely use something like this as well. But it's great for when you want to apply a lot of color, really pack a punch, and you don't really need to blend. You can then go in with this one, for example, to blend in the edges. Also for eyes, I have this one. This one is from Charlotte Tilbury. Again, amazing quality natural hair, which is great for powder products. And this one is a pencil brush. As you can see, it's very small and very, very tapered at the very end. And this one is great to apply product on your lash line, either on your upper lash line to then blend it out. It wouldn't be good to apply eyeliner, but when you, for example, want to go for a blended eyeliner look like I have right now, which is like a black that's sort of been blended, this one is great because you can sort of smudge it out, but it's still quite precise. It's also great to apply on your lower lash line. You can kind of pack it in if you want a very kind of intense color, but if you do want to blend it out, you can just swipe it, and because it's quite small, it still is quite precise, but it does blend the color a little bit. Finally, for eyes, I have this one. This one is by MAC, but I have one from Mikasa that I love as well. It's a classic angled brush. This one is very, very thin. This one is amazing to apply eyeliner. I use it for my gel liner, but you can also use this for brows. The one I have from Mikasa is slightly thicker than this one, as in like just a bit kind of wider here, but it has exactly the same structure. For brows, I'd say I would go for bristles that are a little bit kind of harder and denser. This one, the bristles are a bit further spread apart, but it's still a pretty kind of stiff, which I find is better for sort of products like gel liner or to fill in your brows, just because you want to create a very precise shape. You either want to create a line or you want to create kind of small hairs in your brows, so that sort of works better, because otherwise the product can just end up going everywhere. Finally, I have this brush by Shuramura. It's actually an eyeliner brush, but it's a kind of very thin, long line, very softly packed bristles, and a little bit of a curved dome shape, very tapered at the end. I actually don't use this to apply eyeliner because I prefer angled brushes, but this one is great for pinpoint concealing, and it's also amazing to use as a lip brush. I like to apply my lipstick with a brush, just especially because you can get really well into the kind of corners of your lip and into your cupid's bow and create a more precise shape, so I absolutely love this one. And finally, this one is from MAC. It's just a spoolie. I love the ones from MAC because the bristles are kind of very far apart, so it blends in really well, and I find this one's great to just sort of finish off your eyebrow look and just finish blending to make everything look very, very natural. And finally, my last tool, it's not a brush, but I couldn't have this video without talking about this. It is a beauty blender. I love this product to kind of finish blending out my makeup or to apply powder when I want to bake. So what I usually do is I go in with my Zoeva brush, I apply my foundation with that, but then to blend in sort of contour or blend in concealer, I go in with a damp beauty blender, which I find is great because it just removes all the excess of product. It leaves a very, very seamless finish on your skin. The best way to use it is damp and then just bounce it off your face. You don't want to drag or pull, and it just leaves a very, very natural finish and a very beautiful finish. I also really like it to apply powder. As you can see, this side is more domed and this side is a lot more pointy, so it's great to kind of go into like the little nooks and crannies, like for example here on your eyes, and I find it's amazing. I just dip it into a loose powder, pack that powder on to my face. Even with a damp beauty blender, it packs on really, really well. Leave it on for a couple of seconds and then just use a brush like this, for example, to just dust it off. So in terms of general uses for brushes, I would say that synthetic brushes are best for cream products. That's kind of the general rule. So anything which is liquid or cream, like foundations, concealers, or any kind of cream contours or cream highlighters. Usually synthetic brushes or kind of mixed brushes, like a stippling brush that kind of is half thin synthetic, half natural hair, usually works best. And usually for powder products, it's better to use sort of natural fiber brushes, just because they work with powder products a little bit better. Also, the kind of general rule is that the more densely packed the bristles, the more full coverage something will be, and the more lightly packed the bristles are on the brush, the more sort of airy the coverage. It'll be a lighter coverage, it'll be better for blending, and it'll be kind of more seamless, but you'll get a lot less kind of color intensity. The same goes for longer brushes and shorter ones. So longer bristles, again, usually tend to be kind of more far apart and more sort of for like a lighter kind of wash of color and lighter intensity. So some people love sort of like these brushes which are very lightly packed and quite long to sort of blend in concealer, just so that the edges, for example, are very, very seamless. I prefer to go in with a sponge, but if you like brushes, that's a good way to use brushes. Something like this sort of brush, which is a blending eyeshadow brush, could work well for concealer, just to sort of blend out the edges, just because the bristles are quite long and separated. Then for shorter bristles, they tend to be more packed together, and that will pack more of a punch in terms of color. And it will also kind of give you a lot more full coverage. In terms of brushes, on the whole, I like to go for something that's quite small just because my features are really small and I find that it's easier to kind of create details with smaller brushes. So kind of get into the details of your face, go into like around your nose, create details on your eyes. So I prefer smaller brushes on the whole where possible. But of course, you know, if you are in a rush and you want something that's going to kind of give you kind of, for example, full coverage foundation and blend out super quickly, a bigger brush usually works better for that. But for me, my choice is always smaller ones. So just to tell you guys about some other brushes that I haven't spoken about in this video because I don't personally own them, but other brands I would recommend would definitely be Real Techniques. I think they are great drugstore brushes, very, very good quality, very, very soft, and yeah, just amazing brushes. More than that, they are a little bit more expensive, but I actually prefer them. The Zoeva brushes range, they do some great brushes. They are all synthetic, but they are very, very soft, very, very good on even sensitive skin like mine, which tends to flare up really, really easily. They have really amazing quality. They don't shed, which for me is a huge thing because I hate brushes that shed, and they're just amazing quality. Then if you want to move a little bit more into the higher end, I would say Charlotte Tilbury do some great ones. Dior do some great brushes as well. You've seen I've spoken about a few. For me, MAC is not a huge recommendation. I don't actually love their brushes because I think they shed quite a lot. I've had a few brushes from them and they've always shed, so I don't actually love their brushes very much. I would tend to go for something like Charlotte Tilbury or Shiramura, which are much, much better quality. Shiramura do fantastic synthetic brushes, and all their brushes are quite small, so I really like them for sort of details. And then for eye brushes, Sigma do some really good ones as well, but I would say they're on sort of par with Zoeva, and I do prefer the Zoeva ones a little bit more, although I do have a favorite one from Sigma like I've shown you guys. But on the whole, those are the brands that I would go for. So that was it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. Do let me know if you have any further questions about how to use your brushes below, or if I have any more brush recommendations for something very specific. Do ask me in the comments below. Thank you so, so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!